Hello, hello, hello. We're back with another session of NX Office Hours. I'm gonna come up with an official like tagline for the for Office Hours one day, uh, but because I usually switch it up on what we say about what we do. But in general, we talk about NX, which is a build framework that's extensible and that's open source, and we talk about many things in many different ecosystems. And we're glad to be having another episode here. Thanks to all those in the chat that I see already that were waiting on us before we got started. So uh, thanks to all of you. And we'll have, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those. I have a special guest, first time guest on the show today. Um, so yeah, Leo, thanks for joining. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Leosville. I'm working on Narwhal for a couple of months, and
Hmm.
so far I'm based on Dublin. I've been working with Angular for a while now. I think I started with the early betas of Angular 2.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride. But yeah, happy to be here.
Cool. Beta two. You're an OG then. You back back in the that was probably around about the same time that I started like the betas and the alphas and things. So got in on the
Yeah,
got hit the ground running on that one.
yeah.
Did you use any Angular JS before that?
I used it for maybe about 5 or 6 months,
Okay.
and then I started with the betas. Yeah,
Cool. Yeah, we got some people saying hello in the chat. Thanks, hello to all of you. Thanks for joining. Yeah, before we get into it, we talked a little bit off before we got went live, and I saw that you are an NBA fan.
yeah,
So
that's right.
I try to watch some NBA basketball when I can also. So what how deep are you into the NBA? Do you watch a lot, or you try to catch it when you can, or what do you do there?
Yeah, well, since I'm in Dublin, there is like a lot of times some difference. So watching live is hard sometimes, but there
Hmm.
are some matches that I can watch. But most of the time, yeah, I just the next day I watch the highlights of a lot of matches,
Hmm.
the top plays and things like that. Yeah,
Okay. Do you have a favorite team or a favorite player?
yeah, both. Well, I would say favorite player, LeBron James, but that's
Okay.
is easy. I would say it's either you hate him, or you like him.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, and I like the Lakers. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So I'm
So
fan of the
you
Lakers.
so are you're like wherever LeBron's playing, that's where you're the
Kind of.
team that
Yeah.
you're going for? Okay.
Yeah. When he retires, I'll have to pick a team afterwards.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I follow Kevin Durant more than I think anyone else, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty much the same way. Like whatever team he's on, I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that ends up in the how that ends up in the playoffs and things. If
Yeah.
they end up meeting in the finals or something, I think it'd be
Hopefully
a
they meet
good
in the finals. Yeah,
yeah, I
that would be
think it'd be
great.
a good matchup and definitely good for the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, on and transitioning off of that, um, well, man, we got a lot of people from a lot of different areas in the chat here. We got Germany, India, California, Uruguay, UK. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining. And as I mentioned before, if you have questions, feel free. This is going to be the Angular 12 episode that we mentioned. Ontario, Canada, also in the house. We got the Angular 12 episode. So we're talking about the latest release of Angular, which had a lot of good features in there, and some things that we also added in NX 12.3, which rolled out right after uh, Angular version 12 did, which we were excited about because we had a lot of things going on there. We got Bangladesh, Mojave Desert, Florida. Good to see all of you. Thanks for dropping in. Okay, so with that, I'll open up the post here, and we can get right into it. See if I share my screen here. All right. Yeah, so as we mentioned before, Angular 12 is out. A lot of cool features. We'll just kind of skim through the blog post here, and then we'll kind of talk more directly in the about the features that were announced. I see we got Denver, Barcelona. Good to see all of you. So yeah, one of the big things was moving closer to Ivy everywhere. So View Engine, like you said, you've been around the Angular ecosystem a while, so you've been there from the beginning with kind of, I guess, the progression of the different engines and compilers that Angular's had over the years. But like I said, they're finally deprecating View Engine, and we're like going all in on Ivy now. So we're finally getting to that point. Did you want to add anything to that before we're gonna skim through some of the other ones too? But have you had any bumps along the way as far as switching over the different compilers and things we have had over the years?
Not that I remember right now, like a big issue or anything. Definitely the Ivy one was a major thing, but it's been kind of out there for several years now in several versions. Yeah, I'm glad we finally get to a state where we can deprecate View Engine and then start using Ivy in the whole ecosystem, not just the applications, and then running that in GCC to having the libraries to play nice with Ivy, which is dreadful. But yeah, now it's going to be much better. Yeah.
Yeah, I see Santosh. You got Santosh in the chat. Shout out to him also. Colorado, we see you. We got transitioning from legacy message IDs. I don't think we're going to cover this one specifically, but it has more to do with internationalization and probably some new features along with that. To kind of, like I said, Ivy was one transition. This would be another one of those. I'm just going to talk about these in general, and then we'll get more specifically into like each one. Future of Protractor, I'm sure we'll have something to say about that. Nullish, coalescing, a long-awaited feature, new learning experience for Angular developers. Definitely give a shout out to the docs team on Angular for definitely making continued contributions to the docs. And stylish improvements, including like Inline Sass and more features that we'll talk about here in a second. IE11, support from the community. Always good to get community contributions. Yeah, like I said, we'll talk about those more specifically here. But just kind of wanted to go over like a highlight of some of those that we saw, at least from the blog post. And as you mentioned, View Engine is being deprecated, and we're trying to get to that space where Ivy libraries are the default, instead of like we're in this like middle area now with Ivy or View Engine still being default for publishing libraries, and then they kind of get compiled into Ivy libraries. But we'll talk about that also. We got a question in the chat here that we'll get to also. All right, so let me take this off here. So yeah, let's see, where should we start as far as features go? I think one of the big features that we talked about, or that has been released, maybe that wasn't mentioned in the blog post, is Webpack 5 support. And I know that you've been working on the, like you're part of the lead for the Angular verticals for NX. and y'all, I know that the whole team had to do a lot of work to get the release out, and to Webpack 5 support was one of those big things that we're trying to get out, or that's default in Angular now, that we were trying to get out the door with NX 12.3.
Yeah.
So have you, like, as far as like new features in Webpack 5, are there any ones that you're looking forward to in particular, or have you tried out any of them, like the module federation or anything like that that we were working towards?
Yeah, I personally haven't played with it, but within the team, yeah, there is another volume that is actually looking at adding better support for model federation or
Mm-hmm.
better developer experience there. So yeah, definitely, I would say that's the most exciting feature of Webpack 5.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I would say that's probably the one that I've heard the most about anyway. I know they like
yeah,
are continually making improvements to make things faster, but
yeah.
Module Federation seems like to be the one that's like dominating most of the conversation around Webpack 5.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, as you say as well, as you mentioned, Webpack 5 also means way faster builds, and there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of improvement that went into Webpack 5. But yeah, it's the feature that people talk the most about is model federation, and there is a lot of buzz around it. So yeah, having now support for Webpack 5 out of the box
Mm-hmm.
is really cool because that's something that you can play with.
Yeah, and I think that you mentioned one of our team members is working on that, where we're having some better support for module federation within NX, our our Angular plugin for NX itself. So definitely
Yeah.
be on the lookout for that. Yeah, next thing is the one of the also another feature is TypeScript 4.2, because we had, like I said, Angular landed all these features. Then we went and landed had the or we started, I guess, in parallel. Like Angular was heading towards RC, we were heading towards RC also to try to get on par with the release, and it seemed like the reception was really well as far as Angular itself, as far as us being like on par with Angular, even though we weren't on like version 12 itself, because we had launched version 12 before, NX was on version 12 before Angular hit version 12. But TypeScript 4.2 was another feature there that we landed with the upgrade to NX 12.3 in Angular 12, also getting TypeScript 4.2, which I think TypeScript 4.2 is, I think, gonna, well, Angular was on 4.2. I think the next version of RxJS requires 4.2, so it kind of laying some groundwork there, I think. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It goes to the version that at that time at least was the latest version that it was
Mm-hmm.
supported by those, and it's always nice to be on the latest versions of TypeScript and getting all the new features and fixes that we get there. Um, so yeah, it was a good addition, and it was nice, as you were mentioned. We had a huge team effort trying to get NX support for Angular as soon as Angular released
Mm-hmm.
version 12, and it was something that we all contributed to it, and it was really good to see it through.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned this publicly, but I'm gonna go ahead and mention it anyway, because I don't know if we're gonna do it or not. But I thought we should have like the NX team on office hours at some point, so people can
Yeah,
put some more names with some more faces, to see, all the work that goes into NX, and the crew of people that help move it forward, across all the verticals, not just Angular itself. So I'm just throwing that out there just for a future one that maybe we can make that happen.
yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah. So the next one we'll talk about here, and I'll add these well, we mentioned this one already about View Engine being deprecated and new libraries being Angular Ivy by default. And I do have some thoughts on this one. Did you have, because just from like working on publishing Angular libraries myself, um, have you published any like other libraries or kind of had to work through some of these and as far as publishing libraries and libraries
No,
for with Vue Engine now switching over to Ivy?
no, I personally don't have any published library. I have played a bit with distributing and see what it means.
Hmm.
And I mean, and just from the consumer side, yeah, every time I see NGCC running after every install or after everything, that's yeah,
It
that's
sounds like you have a little pain inside every time you.
yeah, yeah, and also it doesn't play well with PMPM, which is a great
Yeah.
package manager as well. So it's definitely good to move away from that. I know version 12, we still don't get away from that, so we still
Hmm.
have NGCC there because there are still libraries out there with Vue Engine, definitely, but it should get better. More and more, it should get better. Um,
I
but
see
yeah,
you. I see you, Santos. She's in the NGCC. It's pain.
yeah,
But
definitely.
we're in transitionary pain. It's that thing that we got to
Yeah,
get from this side to the other side. Where, of course, we took I don't know how many years to get from Vue Engine being deprecated to or from the last compiler and everything being deprecated to Vue Engine being there, and now it's being deprecated. So we'll see how long before we can get to back to where we were. Where you just run, you serve or you build, and
yeah,
we're just compiling everything like native with Ivy, and just moving on. We're just moving on with our day, and we don't have to worry about seeing NGC log messages
yeah.
anymore. So that'd be something to look forward to. Uh, but yeah, on the other side of that, I am interested to see like how the ecosystem shifts with us moving to like Ivy libraries, um, because like right now you can publish with Ivy, but I think the large amount of the libraries in Angular are still publishing with Vue Engine. And I
Yeah.
think it will probably take at least another version, maybe the next major version. They'll say, okay, everybody can start, publishing with Ivy, publishing like native Ivy libraries, and we'll see like what
Yeah, I
things
think
or
the
what
same.
improvements can come out of that. So yeah, like I said, we'll see how many. We'll see who's going to be the first to flip the switch to start publishing like Ivy only libraries. Because I think once you switch to Ivy first, then like there's no more support for
No, for
Vue
View
en-
Engine.
yeah, Vue Engine library. So like the libraries that your libraries has to be in Ivy, the whole like you got to be Ivy across the board. Then
Yeah,
I'll post a link in the chat here, uh, which another Angular author wrote a blog post about. I'll bring it up here also about Ivy compilation and how that kind of went in depth about how that works now. So I'll bring that up here so we can show it. So if you have a chance to check out that blog post, understanding Angular Ivy compilation, um, definitely a good post to look through, and even one that I used for reference when I was kind of looking to see, what's new with Ivy and how you can enable Ivy compilation. And this, I guess, from a compiler standpoint, I didn't see. Well, they made it very easy to like transition from one to the other. Like if you were just
yeah,
previously compiling with a Vue Engine, you just kind of flip a couple of flags, and now you're building with Ivy. It's like that's one side of it, but the other side is like the ripple effect on what happens after that?
Yeah.
What happens after that?
Imagine doing that in NGRX, in the
Yeah.
NGRX library.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I tried flipping the flag and everything's still built, but like I said, we'll see what the long term effects of that
Yeah.
are. But if you haven't checked out that post, definitely check it out. It was a good read there. Yeah, so let's see what was next on our list. Okay, these are I think a couple of good ones coming up here. And I can refer back to the blog post for that. If I could bring it up here for Angular 12. And we mentioned this kind of when we were starting out about, we can talk about this first, like the future of Protractor. And Protractor has been in the ecosystem for a long time. As like as far as as long as I've used Angular, like Protractor has always been, of course, it's been the default and the choice that you just kind of naturally gravitate to, unless you came from maybe came from another ecosystem to use. But now the future of Protractor is being, I don't know what you want to call it. What would you say the future of Protractor is? I don't know what I want to call it yet, but it's officially being something. So what do you think?
Protractor is dead.
Protractor's dead. We're stamping it. We're calling it
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, I think it's the right step for the Angular team, or the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
Protractor, there are other tools out there maintained by the community or by other companies, which are really good, and a lot of developers out there are already using them.
Mm-hmm.
They do mention them, like Cypress, Test Cafe, or other tools like that. I've used Cypress a lot, and it's a great tool for doing end-to-end tests, with a lot of advantages over Protractor itself. Protractor haven't had much updates
Mm-hmm.
in I don't know, the last year or couple of years. I haven't followed much, but yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like it was coming this way. This was gonna happen rather sooner than later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember it's probably been 2 or 3 years ago now, but um, you always kind of notice when people who like champions of a particular thing are they kind of like move away from that thing. And I remember Julie Ralph she was like the figurehead for Protractor in Angular, or even Angular JS back then. And so you always need like a champion for a thing to like keep it going. I think for the most part. So I think once she left, then there were other people who kind of moved into that area. But to me, she was the champion of Protractor at the time, that like did a lot of the maintenance and like upkeep about it. So, but the good news is, like you said, we have a lot of options out there that users can choose to move to uh, instead of Protractor. But Protractor had its day, and it's officially moving on, or officially moving on from Protractor to see what comes next. So I think even with like new workspaces in Angular 12, you don't even get Protractor
No.
there. But we have some good news on that front as far as NX goes for Angular folks. Um, so yeah, like I said, there are other, as you mentioned, other options: Cypress, WebDriver, Test Cafe, all other solutions. There's Microsoft Playwright is another one. That one keeps getting pitched around also. So we'll see how if that one gains any adoption also. But at least the good news about NX is that if we can have a plugin that people can create to add. If you pick your testing tool of choice, and you can write a plugin or an executor to integrate that right into your workspace there. So So there's always options there. So the next one, I don't think it was mentioned in the blog post, but another one, they said, okay, they mentioned said in the post, Angular transitions, they'll bet there be a schematic to migrate. I would hope so, but we'll see. It's gonna be if it's that easy to pick up your entire like
Yeah,
E2E test suite and and migrate it to something else. I say that you have done a spectacular job, and they have
yeah,
done a spectacular job of
that might
of
be really difficult. Yeah,
yeah, of being able to move off one stack to another. So I know that I think some people have worked on kind of like things that help you with the transition from Protractor to Cypress, since Cypress is like the tool of choice and the one that we officially support in NX. So yeah, I think I think there's still going to be some work to be done, no matter what the migration path is there. So let's see. I don't think I'm scanning through here again. I don't think TS. I think TSLint was already mentioned before, as far as another thing that was being removed from the default Angular project, and of course we can talk about that too. But yeah, TSLint has been around for a while. TSLint is another one of those things that's been around for a while, and the kind of the community has moved along, and ESLint has been along for a while also, and kind of taken like the standard, or has become the standard for that, for running linting in your projects. Definitely shout out to James for Angular ESLint.
yeah,
We'll have to include a link to that repo in the show notes as well. So if you definitely want to check those out afterwards. But yeah, TSLint removed. The good part about it is NX has first class support for ESLint, and we also have a tool that will migrate you from TSLint to ESLint. And I'll bring up the blog here. If I can type on the right panel.
yeah. TSLint has been deprecated for a while, and is not maintained. I think from last December even. So yeah, definitely this was going to happen as well. The good thing, as you mentioned, in NX we officially support it. It's part of our core plugins that we have. It's been there for a while already. We have this automatic or this tool to do the automatic migration.
Yeah, so if you're on the fence about switching from TSLint to ESLint, there are schematics in the Angular ESLint library itself, and also we have tools within NX that you can run to migrate your workspace also. So options on both fronts there. And I will paste the link to, or bring up the Angular ESLint. Definitely check that out. Like I said, big shout out to James Henry and the rest of the contributors to that project for helping us. Like I said, we're actually seems like we're in a transitionary period for a lot of things. Like we're moving off of Protractor and TSLint and View Engine and everything else. So we're moving on to moving on to other areas there. And NX, as we got to throw the plugs in here, NX is modern Angular, so we want modern tools for Angular developers to use and have access to do that. So yeah, so we'll continue on through kind of the list here. I'll back up to the blog post, and we'll kind of scan through. Was there, before we move forward, maybe was there anyone's in particular that kind of stood out to you, or ones that you are particularly excited about for Angular 12?
I think well, we have in the list later some that are since smaller, but they have been like um, out there for a long time. Like they have been feature requests for a long time in terms of HTTP and forms, some minor features that came up in this version. One big one was deprecating support for IE11. You have it right there. Um, I mean, I guess everyone has have felt this pain of having to develop for IE11 for a long time. Yeah, that's something that is dragging us back in the development from the framework standpoint and from the application development standpoint as well. It's something that yeah, having to support IE11 is always a headache. So it's a good thing a major framework like Angular is now deprecating it. So I guess that's another excuse developers can now
Yeah.
use.
It's like our favorite framework no longer supports IE11, so we can't support it either. What are you going to
Exactly.
do? Yeah, definitely. We've been fighting this IE11 battle for years and years and years. And just from the back to just for the sake of having to even just like differential loading, having to ship two versions of like poly or ship a version with polyfills and one without. So just think about like the savings we're going to have there in that
Yeah,
in
it's
that
a
part
lot
of
of
it.
it's a lot of effort from a maintenance perspective. Even in the Angular team as well, they have to put effort into those things. Now that effort can be put into something else, so that's definitely good. And this is the last browser, not evergreen browser that they are supporting. So that's stopping them from using the modern APIs on and stopping us as well, definitely. If we need to support it as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely, good point there. But even for those, there is Angular version 12 will still be supported for a couple of years, even after Angular version 13 and the like move on. So for like large, I know there's some large enterprise out there that still needs to support
True.
IE11, so they'll still have at least still have some time before they have to move off officially. Yeah, so the another one that we kind of talked about this one. Uh, Somebody said in
Yeah.
the chat here, my clients get a panic attack if they hear IE11 will not be supported anymore. I think that's a valid concern. Like I
Yeah.
said, IE11 has been around for so long, and we've kind of built up this natural natural way that we have to IE11 is always the last thing to be remembered, but the but the one thing that we always have to account for when shipping, especially when like I said, shipping like enterprise apps or apps that have people with like legacy machines and like government machines, those kind of things. So
Yeah.
you always have to remember for IE11. So we'll have to keep, like I said, Angular version 12 has support for IE11, which will go on for a couple of years, even after, or a year or so, even after it gets officially, or that now that it's officially deprecated. But so they won't be completely out in the cold immediately, but
Yeah.
the clock is ticking there for sure. Yeah, we had talked about the next one on the flip side of IE11. This was kind of a new feature that we talked about offline, was having strict mode. Well, we didn't talk about strict mode specifically, but that's another one that is coming up in version 12, where it has like all the, I call this like hardcore, like hardcore mode by default, to where all the TypeScript strict checks are turned on, and how that we'll see how that how do you think that'll impact like new users of Angular, like for a strict mode to be turned on like out of the box?
Yeah, for new users that are getting accustomed maybe to TypeScript and things like that, it's definitely, it will cause a lot of noise because but at the same time it will help them a lot to code the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to avoid certain errors that you might find when you don't use strict mode.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason of using TypeScript is precisely that, is to try to catch all these errors that most of the time when you don't use TypeScript, you only find it at runtime. Yeah, I think it's a good step, and the strict mode has been in there for a while now. It's just that has been off by default. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how many people actually turn it on, but I've known several that they do turn on by default already before this release. So yeah, having this as the default now, it's a nice addition, I think.
Yeah, I think I whenever like strict mode or the hardest version of TypeScript all is always turned on by default. I call that like Google edition because I'm going
True.
to shout out Alex Krishko, who used to work at Google and has moved on to Cisco. So shout out to him. Uh, and just like talking about the all the flags that they have turned on and the like the things that you necessarily that you're discouraged from doing just because of they have strict mode on all the things, and now there's kind of like extending some of that to everyone else, like you said, but catching some of those things earlier in the
Yeah.
development life cycle. Sancho said, he said, believe me, no one, you don't think anyone turns on strict mode by default, but well, you have to now. You got to turn it off if you don't want it. So we'll see what the experience is like for new users and those who may be looking at trying to turn strict mode on in future for future apps.
I do think some people might turn it off, like because
Really?
yeah, it will surface a lot of errors that they might think is not that important, but
Hmm.
on the long term they are, and it's good to have it there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder like what kind of impact it has on the experience of like when you're getting started with Angular, like the tutorials and things like that.
Mm.
If those are gonna work with strict mode turned on, or is it just going to be like TypeScript yelling at you the whole time uh, to add more types or no implicit any's or things like that?
Yeah,
Because I know that's a big thing that we want Angular to be easier to learn and easier to get started with quickly, and not necessarily have TypeScript get in the way of that. So we'll see what the balance is, what the balance is on that there.
yeah.
Okay. There's some other minor, I think, pretty minor improvements that we'll cover here pretty quickly. And one of the couple of them was like HTTP improvements and forms improvements. I know the talk has been a lot about making the forms types or adding more types to forms. So I think they're kind of moving in that direction incrementally, so that people can kind of migrate over time to get better type safety in forms, and also like the HTTP improvements. And I personally haven't used the like the have a use case for the thing that was added, like context, for being able to pass the context around
Mhm.
for HTTP. Um, uh, but like I said, I'm sure there was a use case in it needing to be added, so that was a good thing to add there. Have
Yeah,
you had to use that before as far as
yeah. There
needing that?
were, yeah, there were cases where maybe you needed to exclude certain requests for the processing of the intersector.
Mm-hmm.
To exclude that, yeah, you needed to resort to workarounds in order to do that because the interceptor didn't have any context at all. So either to add a header that is just specific for that, and then you in the interceptor you identify the header and do something. Yeah, so that's I think like you say, it's not something that everyone will definitely fall into that. Definitely not. It's probably it's more of a, I wouldn't say an edge case, but it's not that common. But yeah, it's something that definitely there are some use cases out there, and it's nice to have now like a default way to do it, which is really good. And it's been, like I said, these are the type of things they are all minors in the HTTP ones and the form. There was nothing big there, but they have been feature requests for a long time in there. They were shipped now.
Yeah, it's definitely good to have, like you said, first class support for those things, to have those instead of having to like do workarounds. Because then if you're working on different projects, like everybody's doing it in a different way, and there'll just be some more like continuity there as far as when you're moving from project to project on how it's implemented. So definitely can move on from that. This one is another good one that came out of this post was the Nullish coalescing that we can talk about, that they mentioned like in the NGConf and through the keynotes there. Nicholas chimed in and said you have an example of spinners for each request, and maybe you want to have a silent request that ignores the spinner. But that was one example that he mentioned before, which I think is a pretty good one as far as how that context can help you as far as enabling or disabling those. So definitely a good one there. The next one we talked about was Nullish coalescing, being able to use this in your Angular templates. Because before, of course, we can see on the post here that you had to you could do these conditionals before, but you kind of had to roll your own conditional, and now you can shorten that out in the template itself, which I think is a good addition.
Definitely.
Yeah, I am interested to see how many people use this pattern because use the pattern of calling functions in template bindings. So we'll see.
And will then do it.
I don't know if I'm interested to see how many people use that as a common practice, because I know it's an easy thing to do, but I don't traditionally use that because it can lead to, in some cases it can lead to like performance, a performance hit. So, or like if you want change detection to be less noisy, then that's something that you kind of have to avoid there. So yeah, Nullish coalescing, like I said, that was a good one. Another one, which this is one of the ones that I am pretty excited about, is the being able to use Inline Sass in the component definitions or inside the component decorators. And part of that is, I don't know, I'll see what your take is on this, but for me, I like to keep all my component pieces in the component file. Like if the HTML, I put the HTML in there. If I can put the CSS in there, I would like put it in styles instead of style URLs and template URLs, because I think it provides a good consolidated way to see everything at once. And I think that it gives you a good indicator of maybe when your templates are too big and you need to break them down into like smaller components. Where do you land on the multiple files versus single file component? Not single file components, because that's a different thing, but like having everything in the component definition.
Yeah, I don't think I have a strong preference, but what you say, I mean, it totally resonates with me. I think having it in a single file like you say, it is really a good indicator. If your template is growing, you will notice immediately, and maybe it's a heads up that you need to refactor, and you need to split into different components. Yeah, I think if you have all the tooling on the component side, which I think nowadays you have all the tooling, so you get everything in there. Yeah, definitely having this support is a nice addition.
Yeah, I think so. Because like I said, I choose SaaS more often than not,
Yeah,
even if just for like kind of one-off projects and things, just because if I want to introduce, like I said, introduce something like Tailwind or or even just from using like Material or other SaaS packages that you can, add to your project to get some of that stuff out of the box or some of those extra helpers and things. I use those, but you always have to put your styles like in an external file so that it'll be able to process them correctly. So now it can kind of keep those, like I said, keep those in line and keep my
yeah,
components like small and concise. So that was definitely one of the things that that when I saw it, I was like, that's definitely something I'm going to take advantage of there. Yeah. So I think, of course, one of the biggest ones that we talked about, or that was new in version 12, is I think it's mentioned in here. Let's see. But yes, production builds by default. So this one I think has been like floating around the ecosystem for a long time, where you you say, okay, I want to try Angular and I want to try this on some hosting provider, and I'm just going to do an ng build and I'm going to ship it. And hey, everybody, look at my Hello World app. It's like 3 megabytes. And like, what are you? And they're like, why am I downloading 3 megabytes for this Hello World app? It's like, oh, I didn't ship it with a production build, and I'm shipping like all the things with it, which is not what you want to do there. So
yeah,
I'm glad it defaults to production mode now, and that it gives you, like I said, gives you the option to keep your your development builds for like serving and things, because I don't want to serve in production mode. I think there's too much overhead that goes along with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think this one, like you have said before, this one actually helps um, someone that is starting with Angular as well, because uh, the way it was before, yeah, it's another thing that you have to know. You have to know that, oh wait, this is not optimized. And how do I optimize this? So in order to serve, and you need to remember. Now it's way easier. Now, if you're starting, your ng build will give you already production ready code, which is nice.
Yep, that is. And like I said, as long as the option is still there for like existing users to be able to still serve in development mode, definitely a good addition there for. And I think it also aligns Angular with the rest of the like other frameworks as far as what you get when you do a build on other projects as well. Because NX supports Angular, React, primary and Node primarily, but I think React does that out of the box. You do a build and you get a production version of that app. So not having to have a special be like Angular does it this way when everyone else does it the other way
Yeah,
is a good thing, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, so I think we covered most of the things that are in uh, Angular 12. We talked about NX 12.3, some things that came along with that. So I'll bring up the post here. It's not that one. Let's go back to the blog here. But yeah, Angular NX 12.3, we got to talk about that one. Of course, came with Angular 12 out of the box, came out a day after. So we definitely got some, are definitely able to like keep that momentum going of getting that release out the door, and so that people can up. I don't know how many people actually upgrade on like day zero, outside of course we're out there testing projects to make sure that all the updates go well. Um, but some people kind of wait a little while to see if if the release is good. But I think so far we've done pretty good as far as 12.3 goes and upgrading to Angular version 12. So definitely had some good things to come out of that. Some of the highlights in NX 12.3, we talked about incremental build improvements, and that being a new feature where you can have to you can specify target dependencies, and this helps you to define those things that need to be done in a certain order. Like if your app needs to get built before running your E2E tests, you can make sure that that always happens, as opposed to kind of having to set that up through like external scripts and things like that. So like I said, support for upgrading to Angular version 12. If you're on NX version 11 and you upgrade to 12.3, you'll get all the good upgrades there, and be able to move along that. Was one question here: is it recommended to update from NX 10 to 12? Angular normally suggests, at least in the past, going from 10 to 11 to 12. And I can speak on that because I actually went through this on a side project of mine, going from version 10 to version 12, and it is possible to do it because NX Migrate handles those migrations for you, kind of collects them all into one particular pass. Even though you're going from 10 to 12, all the migrations that you would normally run in going from version 10 to 12 are still being run in that particular order. We already talked about TSLint to ESLint migration. If you're on TSLint now, you should start that you should start that journey now of trying to upgrade to ESLint or migrate to ESLint. And like I said, we already have some tools in place for that. We talked about Storybook, moving to Storybook 6.2 plus, along with the NX 12.3 upgrade there. And we also have some other highlights there. So I'll paste this link in the chat if you are looking to upgrade there. And as I mentioned before, upgrading is with NX. You run NX Migrate to latest, and then you run NX Migrate with your migrations. And if all goes well, you'll be on the latest version of NX and Angular and NGRX if you're using that, or the other packages that we support, including Jest, Cypress, and Storybook, and those. So yeah, I think that is, I think we'll see. I'm going to scan through to see if we had any other questions before we start to wrap up here. We talked about, I think there was a question about Ivy libraries, but we'll see. This is one quick question that we can answer. Will Angular libraries built with Ivy be publishable to the NPM ecosystem? And I'll say the answer to that is yes. The publishing mechanism, I think, with NPM stays the same. It's still just what you're shipping to NPM. But like I said, other things have to be in place for everybody to start shipping Ivy libraries to NPM, because then you have to kind of inform your users that you have to be on Ivy to be using those libraries. Let's see, there was a question for support with module federation. We covered that one. Leo covered that one earlier in the show. We'll definitely link to that in the show notes, but we are working on adding module federation, and we'll land that at some point. And of course the docs and everything will come along with that. So with that, I will remove this. And I'm gonna plug your. I don't know how much you use Twitter, but we got your handle there for following you on Twitter, so people can follow you there. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon T Roberts, as you can see in the names. Um, but yeah, is there any more plugs you like to give out before we wrap up?
Um, no, I mean, yeah, yeah, normally, yeah, I use Twitter a lot. I probably don't publish much. I do retweet stuff and follow a lot of people. So yeah, I'm up to date with a lot of stuff there.
Okay, cool. I will be checking your Twitter to see if you're see if you're gonna be posting any more basketball NBA stuff up there once the playoffs start. So we'll we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I think on that note, excuse me, Leo, thank you for coming on. I know this was your first go around on office hours, but I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us and talking about all things Angular. And like I said, hopefully we can get the team on one day. But thanks for coming on and appreciate you.
yeah. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, and thank you everyone for attending.
Yeah, get these last couple of plugs in here. If you're not following NX DevTools on Twitter, definitely follow us there. If you're watching this live or recorded, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that button to get those notifications, because that helps us out there. And if you're interested in contributing to the project, we're at github.com/narwhal/nx. So definitely check that out to show you how to get started there. And thanks to all of you for coming out to talk all things Angular. If you'd like to see some more topics being discussed, definitely let us know about those. You can hit us up on Twitter, or I think most of our Narwhalians are on Twitter. So just reach out to one of us, or you can reach out to me directly. So I think with that, we will say goodbye and see you everyone next time. See ya.
Bye, everyone.